Hi, welcome to the channel. Every 3 months, I like to do a quarterly reflection where I organize and gather my thoughts on the music that I've been making and the videos that I've been sharing here on the channel. These reflection videos help me process all of the activity that happens around my music making, and I think they serve as nice snapshots to document my musical thinking more directly. I'm going to start with a recap of what happened over the past 3 months. Then I'll talk about some of the ideas that I feel like are most on my mind right now. And I'll finish up by looking forward and talking about what's next for me and the channel. Before I get too deep in that, though, I just want to have a quick look at the patch that I have here on the table. I wanted to set some backdrop for today's video with this low drone that is coming from the Sport Modulator 2. A bit of FM from channel 2 into channel 1 there. And then we're filtering that with a notch filter and adding in some frequency shifting with some nice slow modulation from the angle grinders outputs and from the nibbler running into the boundary as a slew limiter to really slow and stretch out all of the shifts that are happening in the modulation of that main audio route. There's a little bit of noise coming in from the interstellar radio as well, just a little lovely noise that's also modulating the frequency shifter to get a little more airiness to things. And so I'm just going to let this play in the background while I talk about my thoughts for the quarter. So what happened this quarter? Back at the beginning of the year, I decided to change my video schedule for 2025. And my current aim is to make 2 videos on the channel each month. So far, I've been enjoying this adjustment. I feel like I've been able to use the additional time to let video ideas simmer a little bit longer and to put more work into pre-planning the contents of a video where that feels necessary. It does sometimes feel like 2 videos per month isn't quite enough, though. I'm starting to generate a backlog of topics that I want to be exploring here on the channel, and I also want to continue doing sound exploration and improvisation videos alongside the more complicated informational talky videos. I'm thinking that I might explore dropping in some extra videos this quarter, use the 2 videos as a scaffold, and freely sprinkle in extras as they develop. We'll see exactly how this goes. I just want to note that I'm feeling that I'm on the right track with this adjustment, but I'm still experimenting with where exactly it goes. My videos this quarter have been largely focused on technical explorations and documentation of my instruments. And this reflects what my primary focus has been beyond the channel as well. I've taken the last few months to become more deeply reacquainted with my main instruments, the mixing board, and my experimental modular system. I think it could be easy to write off this sort of technical documentation and mapping as a form of procrastination. To say, shouldn't I be making music instead of preparing to make music? But I actually think, especially for the way that I approach this sort of sound making, this sort of technical documentation is also a really important form of artistic research. And I'll dive more into my thoughts on this in a little bit. In terms of what I've been doing and how I feel about it, I want to say that I'm really happy with the videos that I've released this quarter. I feel like the mixing board techniques video updates a lot of my earlier ideas about the instrument in a way that complements the initial material without replacing it. And the exploration of minimal noise techniques for my modular system lays the groundworks for a lot of future material that I plan on doing here. One of the main reasons that I cut back my video schedule for 2025 was to make more time for offline personal music work. No one really gets to see any of that until it does its final emergence, but I want to note that I've been making some good progress on what I think will be a chunk of material for my next album. I've recorded several more pieces specifically with the mixing board that extend the ideas of the Recursion Field series I was working on in Emerging Artist, and I think there's still a lot of theoretical distance to cover with these minimal static pieces with the mixing board. I think I have a clear idea of what the next push into these ideas will sound like, and I'm excited to continue to develop that in the shadows offline. But to get to what I've been thinking about this quarter, I want to return to the idea of technical documentation and mapping. I've been thinking lately about how these constitute an important part of my artistic research and the developmental process for my music. Instruments like the mixing board or the modular synthesizer are open-ended. The question of what they can do has no regular or standard answer. Mapping one of these instruments is not just a technical or administrative task, but instead, I think, a real artistic question. There's an interesting back and forth of definition that happens in the activity. Mapping the capabilities of the object as a musical instrument depends on how you construct your ideas of music. But as you encounter the capabilities of the object you're mapping, your definition of music might also change to accommodate those capabilities. The question of how does this object do music intersects with the question of how is what this object does musical. The possibilities of the instrument raise aesthetic questions about sound and music. And as a result, the instrument and the idea of the music that it is capable of co-construct each other. In the work of mapping and documenting my instruments that I've been focused on these past few months, I find this inquiry motivates new musical work. My understanding of music, and particularly my understanding of the type of music that I want to be making, is pushed towards new theoretical developments through this documentary practice. And I end up making things that are beyond my preconceived ideas of musical form and content by mapping and documenting the instrument. On a more mundane note, I've also been listening to several podcasts and channels recently that do these longer form patch explorations with some laid back explanation and development of the patches. I've really enjoyed the Rat's Nest podcast for a while, and recently I also started listening to the Patched Modular Synth podcast. I'll put links to both of these in the description for this video. And I'm just really enamored with this format, especially for days when I wake up early and have some extra time to putter around with my coffee. Listening to someone slowly work through and develop and narrate a patch on a modular system is a really delightful format that I've just been chewing on a lot lately. This feels like a format that I'm curious to explore more. It has a little more structure and cohesion than a simple patch recording, but it's more relaxed than a specifically organized informational form that's trying to communicate a particular developed concept. I really appreciate the ability to linger or luxuriate in a sound world while slowly developing it. I don't know exactly what will come of this, but I think there's a media form here that I want to be playing around with some in the future as well. Each quarter, I like to pick a book and a piece of music that I feel like have been particularly influential or sort of lodged in my thinking for this quarter. With regards to a book, that book is Applying Karnatic Rhythmical Techniques to Western Music by Rafael Reina. Even though my work is not particularly rhythmic, the ideas of time and organizing time are really important to me. And the different ways of working with structures of time that are presented here just make a lot of sense to me. I think this is one of those books that I can confidently sort of point at now and say, I'm still going to be thinking about this book in 2 years, in 5 years' time. And I see it working as a sort of underscaffolding for how I do more with thinking about the orders of time. And with regards to a piece of music that I've been listening to, I want to pick out Coptic Light by Morton Feldman. It's such a beautifully heavy but weightless thing. I would describe it as a piece that floats thickly. The orchestra joins together into this massive singular texture in the piece, but unlike, say, Ligeti's Atmospheres, where I feel like the individual instruments disappear into the texture, in Coptic Light, there's this flurry of individual activity to maintain the sonic form. It sways with danger and wants to collapse, and yet it never falls. In the program notes for the piece, Feldman describes two specific influences for Coptic Light, and given my interests in texture and aesthetic presence, I'm immediately sympathetic to both of these images. The first is a display of early Coptic textiles from an exhibition at the Louvre. Just as these small fragments of woven cloth convey in their encounter what Feldman describes as an essential atmosphere of their civilization, Feldman seeks in Coptic Light to convey an atmosphere of Western music as if it were encountered in a musical object 2,000 years into the future. It's a fragmentary object, a small thing that does not directly communicate the entirety of where it came from, but leaves an impression or transmits a presence through the particular small object. And I think that's really a beautiful idea. The second image that Feldman invokes is that of the orchestral pedal. Sibelius contrasts the orchestra and the piano by noting that the former lacks a pedal. In response to this idea, Feldman pursues the question of how to develop a capability of pedal for the orchestra, which he also describes as a chiaroscuro, which in visual art refers to a particular treatment of light that emphasizes volume through strong contrasts in lightness and darkness. Particularly with these images in mind to contemplate while listening, I keep coming back to Coptic Light with an interest in unpacking the depth and development of its sonic volumes and atmosphere. Looking forward to the next 3 months, there are a few things that I want to highlight for the channel. First, I've been meaning to record a video explaining the current arrangement of modules in this system. Collecting my thoughts on what's changed, what the logic for the case is, and how to communicate these things has taken a little longer than I thought, but I expect that to be the next video that I share here on the channel. For the mixing board, there are some ideas about processing external signals with the mixing board that I want to explore. There have been a couple of times where I've used the mixing board in conjunction with a sample player, like the Electron model samples, and I want to dive a little deeper into that space again. And then I have some other ideas that I still want to get around to some sound focused videos in the schedule. So as I said before, I think I might experiment with dropping a few extra videos into the schedule this quarter. We'll see. I just have a lot of ideas bouncing around in my brain right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to get them all into the next 3 months as best as I can. Other than that, I'm going to be picking away at things for my next album of work. That'll stay quiet until it's more or less done. I'm not in any rush to get it finished right now either. I'd like to continue enjoying the process of slowly developing that work, but that's sort of what I'm doing with a lot of the extra time that I'm getting away from the videos that I'm making. I'm trying to keep learning, keep sharing, and keep making music. And so long as I continue balancing these three things, I think I'm going to be happy with where my musical work is going. I really appreciate everyone who drops in to listen and stay up to date with my musical thinkings and makings. Your support and interest mean a lot to me. I hope that you keep learning, you keep sharing and that you keep making music too. And also, I hope that you have a great day.